Welcome to the latest episode of the Low Production High Value Show, a show for and about entrepreneurs.
In this episode, I talked to Patrick McCaully from Pointman PR. We talk about public relations and earned media and the implications now for being discovered by AI search. So if you're looking to increase the visibility of yourself or your business, this is an episode that you will find helpful. Welcome back, Patrick. It's good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
So the last time you were on, we talked about earned media and the power of having the best idea. Since then, AI answer engines have gone from a novelty to the somewhat of being the default. What's one thing you've generally changed your mind about since then?
I mean, this is a seismic shift in PR. So all the reasons that you always had to do PR are still valid. You know, that third-party endorsement, being able to repurpose it for social media content, all of that. But the seismic shift of shifting from Google search to AI search is just way too big a deal for CMOs and marketers not to pay attention to. And where earned media really comes into that is Muckrack cited that 82% of what AI is citing is earned media. So you don't just have to be occasionally in the media, in that third-party media. It becomes very, very important to be regularly in there, to be in with particular publications and just the volume of things so that you're the guy that comes up in that search. And the thing is, you know, this keeps changing, right? The whole concept of PR for AI is like maybe 8 months old, and it still is changing every day, and all the rules change every day too. So it's kind of an exciting and perilous time to be in public relations. But I don't think that CMOs have really jumped into it as much as they need to and should in order to get that advantage, because if everyone is doing a search for a product or a service and they're using AI and you don't come up in that search, then you don't exist. So whatever you're paying on clicks and SEO is nice, but as people shift away from that, you better be investing in earned media as well.
Well, and to build on that, 5 years ago, marketers were obsessed with backlinks. Mm-hmm. But to your point about, now it's AI citations and recommendations. So what has actually changed from your point of view? Is it the kind of outlet that matters, or is it just the format or the signal?
So different AI services see it differently. Like Claude apparently really is interested in trade publications. And it looks at those and is interested in the credibility that you get from being in a trade publication, whereas ChatGPT is more general and kind of looks at the higher viewer or subscriber type publications and outlets. So, you know, you're on Global TV or CTV National News or something like that, then you're going to stick out more for ChatGPT. You can't ignore any layer of PR pitching. It's really about getting the most and the best pitches. So you got to look at the trade media. If you're a digital marketer, you got to be in digital marketing publications. But also, yeah, if it's a consumer product, you need to be kind of everywhere and get just as much mention and third-party credibility as possible from earned media.
But are you suggesting striking a balance, though? As you said, Claude is focused more on trade outlets. ChatGPT, I'll call it more of a broader generalist, but so I can strive for as many media mentions as possible, like carpet bombing, or
targeted. I would say targeted bombing.
But that's where I was going with this idea of the striking the balance between quantity and quality of outlet and mention.
Yeah, I mean, look, personally, I don't think you want to dismiss any media coverage that you can get that's positive. But I think that getting into the trade publications should be the easier target, just because they're always going to want to talk about your industry. They're going to care about things that aren't newsworthy to a wide business audience. And the only problem you run into there is if something is paid and you have to sort of pay to play, which happens as well with some of the smaller trade publications. But, you know, every time I put out a pitch, I want to appeal to that trade media and as much media as possible. So part of the dark art of getting media coverage is to make it very broad a topic and relate it back to the client. So like a recent example, I was working with a guy that does procurement, which is not terribly exciting from a PR standpoint. And like, how do you turn procurement into a story that like the 6 o'clock news is going to care about, and online publications and more sort of traditional media and radio shows? Well, you make it controversial, right? So we ended up, and this was in January, we ended up doing a pitch about if Canada was invaded by the US, would we have procurement paralysis in terms of like being able to get up to speed and like buy like the $800 billion worth of ships and battleships and planes and guns and all that stuff. We actually came up with the idea back in October. So when we initially did the survey that it was based on, it was a very hypothetical concept. Like Trump was still talking about Cuba, you know? But then it became in January. It was like that was the week that the Canadian government admitted they had a plan, like to repel a U.S. invasion, which I imagine wasn't a very successful one because even with like an $800 billion investment, it didn't look like it was going to help too much. But the point is, there's an example where traditionally that would be a very B2B thing, right? Like procurement, right? Let's talk about procurement. What are the top 10 things that are really bad about procurement? You know, that kind of thing, a listicle or whatever. But we took that idea and made it a really mainstream concept, got a ton of media coverage, ton of media interviews for the procurement guy. And, you know, a little bit of luck and timing. That certainly helped. It was in the cultural zeitgeist and everyone was worried about it that week. But that's a pitch that's going to get into the trade publications, which it did, and is also going to be something that people could talk about on morning radio just because it relates to everyone. So from my perspective, don't leave anything on the table. Always pitch so that you're going to go to as wide an audience as possible, and you're going to get the trade publications because it's relevant to the trade. And it's a lot more interesting than most pitches are going to be. Anyway.
But, well, along that line of thinking when it comes to pitches, I mean, you've spent your career convincing editors to run stories. Mm-hmm. But, you know, AI now does the filtering editors used to do. So what does credibility by association mean when the gatekeeper is a model instead of a person? How are you circumventing that or basically getting through the filter?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, I'm sure no newsroom would actually admit that they're doing that. But yeah, they're getting hundreds, if not thousands, of emails a day. So I wouldn't blame an assignment editor for using some kind of a AI filter in that. But the things that stand out and are going to get people's attention are still going to stand out and get people's attention. So even if you are dealing with an AI, I think a bombastic headline or something that's really grabbing attention, alliterative, clever, still gets recognized as being interesting, or at least maybe doesn't get immediately put into the delete file. But what a time not to be a mediocre PR person, because, you know, you really have to you can't pull punches. You have to do something that's really original and interesting and relevant and timely and topical. And these, you know, I guess a lot of agencies send something out based on what the client thinks is interesting and then basically call and beg media outlets to do the story. This is the time where you have to have such an interesting idea or such a catchy headline or something that's so interesting that the media comes to you.
Like a military invasion.
Like a military invasion, or I'm doing something for a bed company right now, and we did a thing about like Canadians are not having fun in the bedroom, which, you know, humor massively underused in PR, and like right now, couldn't we all use a little bit of humor and something that's not depressing? You know, like it's a challenge and an opportunity because it's an insane news cycle, and there's a lot of legitimate news happening and a lot of breaking news that's diverting attention. But I think that things that are broad in scope or humor or FOMO still work. But you really can't pull punches and you really got to go to the wall with stuff. It's not the time for half measures.
Well, but everyone is creating content. And to your point, like it's a noisy world. How do you, whether it's an idea being submitted by email or on the flip side, an idea does, you know, get pushed out, formally distributed. Mm-hmm. It's about visibility for that idea, but everyone's creating content, but almost no one is creating news. You know, from your perspective, what's the difference, and where does that distinction show up, you know, most clearly in AI recommendations?
I mean, this is kind of the difference between being someone who's worked in a newsroom and someone who hasn't. I think that the big advantage that I have is that I used to be an assignment editor, so I was the guy sitting at the desk, bored out of my skull, at 3:00 in the morning, thinking like, why don't agencies have interesting pitches for me, you know? So I think that those are the things that always got through and still get through. AI just needs you to make bigger swings, be more bold, be more definitive. Like the same way that kind of news aggregators, like there's a few things that I think will help you get picked up by an AI if it is in fact filtering for newsrooms. Let's assume that's the case in some cases. I think if you say survey : amazing headline, that gets you further ahead, because then immediately there's a proof point of a survey in that pitch. Or really just using Canadians in a headline tends to get people's attention too. Or I tend to do like a national pitch first and then go local, or like Ontarians or Vancouverites or Manitobans or Saskatchewanites or whatever you would call them. Saskatchewan. I looked this up. Saskatchewans.
It's safe.
Yeah, I knew it. It was in there somewhere.
If I put the average B2B founders, their website, their blog, or to tie back to what you were saying earlier, their own preconceived notion about what's noteworthy about them or what they think is story worthy, like when you assess what they're, presenting, where is the first point of failure or break that you see typically?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I was a journalist. I didn't go to PR school, so I don't think I do it the same way that other people do. But generally the process is you get a meeting with the client and, most agencies would be like, wow, tell me what's interesting about your robust network.
Procurement.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. And of course it's newsworthy to you. It's your baby. You live and breathe by it. It's what, you're employing people. And I think that there's a notion by founders and the people who worship the founders. There's a lot of like founder worship out there of like, oh, the founder's not wrong. The founder is everything. Yeah, like that's inside your own little bubble. Biggest problem fundamentally is that people think the media owes them something. They don't work for you. They work for Canadians. They work for the media company. They really don't owe you anything because you employ people, because you have a product or service, or because you think you're awesome. It's about going to them with a really good story. So fundamentally, founders and companies thinking that they're more newsworthy than they are and kind of bullying an agency into sending out a press release. And there's all kinds of people that are happy to take your money and not necessarily get coverage. So it's like, oh yeah, sure, let's send out a press release about your new robust C-suite, blah, 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 blah. And like, no one cares. That's a very thin audience of people who might actually get. So it's like data recovery. How many people in Canada write about data recovery? At 10, and you're sending it out there and thinking it's going to kill it on breakfast television. Well, no one cares. So, and even within those, like 10 people can say no. So if you're going out of the door fundamentally with a pitch that is self-serving, not interesting, no original data, no insights, no trends, no humor, good luck. Because it's an incredibly busy news cycle and no one's going to care about that. You might as well just pay for advertising.
I mean, don't you know who I am? I'm the founder of the most robust and scalable procurement solution for enterprises.
Yes, and I mean, I think good PR requires difficult discussions, and I'm perhaps in a good way or a bad way known for being very direct with clients. So, an example, I had a guy who called me that he was a financial advisor who very seldom have anything interesting to say, by the way, as a group. And he said, I've written a book about being a financial advisor for 30 years. This is my time with my self-published book. And like, look, self-published books, great for marketing, great for proof, great for social media, great for like a lot of different reasons. So, marketing sells, if you're speaking, whatever. Not for PR. A self-published book is not impressive to anyone.
It's your mom's favorite book.
Yeah, exactly. It's my mom's favorite book of the year, 5 out of 5. So, I mean, I said, listen, that's great. Good for you. No one's going to care that you wrote a self-published book. Let's do something that's actually newsworthy if you want to get media coverage. So we did a survey to 1,000 Canadians through like an online platform, Google survey at the time, which has been sunsetted, but there's others now. And we did like fake investment terms. So like, do you have DSP 2016 in your portfolio? Do you have forward yield disbursement funds, white chip stocks, things that almost sound real but don't exist? And like 40% of Canadians said that they had things that didn't exist in their portfolio. So that's immediately kind of funny, kind of self-deprecating, which is really on cue for the Canadian sense of humor, and very different than what everyone else is saying in the field. So that got onto the front page of the Globe and Mail business section because it was different, it was funny, and it was original. And that's the kind of thing you have to do. You have to do something that's really, really different. Not because PR is really sold on like connections, and just because a guy knows you at the National Post doesn't mean you're going to get a story. They don't do stories because they like you. They do the story because it's the best story that's been pitched. It's like one of the last true meritocracies in the world, which means you have to always have the best idea, and you should hire the person with the best idea, whoever that is.
Well, to build on that, have there been any other campaigns where one earned media story drove to outsized business results or had a lasting effect?
Well, so here's an interesting example. So years ago, I was working with an online travel agency, and we did a pitch right around Canada Day on what we coined the term, and you can actually look this up on Wikipedia. It says that I created it along with Mark Bowden, who is a international body language expert of some renown, flag jacking. Now, there's a hyphen in between. Don't spell it the other way or it's other stuff. But the concept of flag jacking is that you go to a different country and you're an American and you put on the Canadian maple leaf and you pretend to be Canadian because everyone hates Americans. Probably, particularly at the moment, there's a lot of flag jacking happening. And we sent it out. We got a fairly good response in Canada, but it wasn't like lighting the world on fire. And then CNN.com picked it up. And that is just a huge beast of a site. So many people saw it in Canada and in the US because they're going to the website for that. It got syndicated across a whole bunch of things as a story. And then I think really because it was on CNN, it just fueled a ridiculous number of more media coverage. There was another 150, 200 hits on that particular story because it was like they were quoting CNN. So like CNN is saying Canadians are flag jacking, So certainly there are pieces that, just like a viral video, everyone says like, hey, can you make my video viral? Well, yeah, you're going to try.
Does it have puppies?
Exactly, yeah. Dogs that can dance, whatever. Of course, you're trying to make it be picked up across a lot of different media. And the opportunity now, a lot of what happens is when I send out a press release, which is still the way to send media pitches, kids. I know that you could Google like the press release is dead and like everyone likes to say that. That's not true. The media still wants organized, cut and paste into a national story type information sent to them. And they often will do that. So I will never hear from the media person, but they'll take the content of the press release almost verbatim and do a national story. And then it'll get picked up by all the other stations that are in that syndicate. So, you get something on globaltv.com, then it ends up on the radio stations' websites, maybe on the radio stations themselves, in the news wheel. It goes everywhere. And like even a lesser known, there's the Black Creek Media in BC and Alberta. There's about 65 outlets. So if you get into one of those publications, and we're talking like Salmon Arm Journal, the online version of that, they syndicate so much content. One hit ends up being like 65 hits because it goes places.
Does that mean, as you said, the person with the best idea wins?
Yeah.
But also, beyond the best idea, it's also like, can you make the recipient of said press release, can you make their job easier?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's an overlooked thing, right? Like the dark art, as I say, is spoon feeding a pitch where everything you need is there to run with the story and do it. Or talk to your spokesperson. That's great too. Honestly, most people aren't jazzed about doing interviews at the last minute, so they almost prefer it just to be picked up the way that you wrote it. I think that's the perfect hit, is what you put into a press release gets picked up the way that you said it about yourself. That's pretty great. But yeah, you want to get stuff out there as broadly as possible, as interesting as possible, and make it as easy for the reporter to put together a story as possible, because the least number of journalists in history are generating the most content. They're probably doing it for a website, maybe a radio station and a TV station, and they don't really have a lot of time to do that. So make their life easier.
We'll be back in a moment. And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins, Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com. Now, back to the show.
No, if they can two birds or three birds with one stone, all the better, right? If a founder lands, to your point, best idea, they land the story about themselves with the help of their PR service provider, how do they actually know it's working from an AI recommendation point of view?
Mm-hmm. So this is interesting now, right? There's different tools to look at your AI rankings. Like, do you come up in those searches? I search myself a lot, like I used to do with Google, because that was the relevant thing. You probably do too. Yourself
yes.
a lot,
yes.
so to speak. And
we'll leave that there.
We won't delve into that one. But yeah, I think if you're not logged in and it doesn't already know who you are, you can use Claude, ChatGPT, whatever. I guess Dojo, which is one of your faves, to look at where you're ranking in terms of AI search. Even Meltwater is coming up with a shout out to Meltwater if you're listening.
They'll be tagged. Full transparency, folks. Patrick and I share a subscription to Meltwater.
We do.
One for media, one for social media.
Yes.
And what sparked today's discussion is recent publications from Meltwater about AI and citations and media mentions influencing your discoverability by AI search. So
everyone's kind of on it. I feel like maybe Muckrack in the PR space is a little bit more on it than they are. But, so yeah, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there.
How do they know it's actually working?
Well, how do they know it's actually working? Yeah, so I think you need to use these various tools, and there's a lot of them, to just constantly be looking and seeing if you're coming up. Because, back in the good old days of Google search, you'd get a page or two of blue links that you could cycle through and decide what to click on. With an AI search engine, it gives you 5 options that are very concise. And here's the guys you need to talk to. Who's the best PR person in Canada? And if you're not one of those 5 people, then you don't exist. And you're not going to get a phone call from somebody that's looking for the service. So and one of those 5 people.
Well, it's less of just a list of links. And there's more of a summary and a distillation of what's on the links were you to click on it. So in a sense, you get more information pre-clicking the link for you to make your decision as to whether to bother. Or even before, in many ways, you get the answer to your question without having to click a link.
Yeah, and I think it's very impactful because it's here's the 5 you need to talk about. Here's the 5 you need to think about. So you're not searching pages. You're going to take AI suggestion. Maybe you'll refine it from there, but you better come up in those results. And again, earned media is the number one way to do that. There's other things you can do on your website and being clearly. I read something yesterday about if you answer a lot of questions, look at what questions are being asked for your industry, and then have a page where you clearly answer those questions in bullet form, then that helps you too. Also rankings. Shout out to Clutch, which is another organization that you and I are familiar with, independent marketing ranking site. That has a lot of impact on people coming to AI because it's all third-party things. It's not paid media. It's rankings, it's Wikipedia, it's Reddit, it's question and answer sites and your earned media that's really going to boost your AI presence.
Well, so, to add to that, they're talking about LinkedIn citations. They're talking, Reddit and LinkedIn are the most cited websites.
Yes.
When it comes to AI search. Then you add a layer on the earned media side, and then you add reviews and rankings like Clutch. So both you and I have experienced, being discovered by chat from people wanting to talk to us who use ChatGPT or AI search, and it's our Clutch reviews and rankings influenced our discoverability. Where I'm going with this is it's not about, you shouldn't be relying, I'm assuming, I want to get your take, as much as you're in earned media and I'm in social media, you shouldn't be reliant on just one medium or one distribution channel.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point. I've always said, even before all of this seismic shift, PR is not the solution to every problem. Sometimes it makes sense to do a paid advertising thing. Sometimes it makes sense to look at different marketing options. And yeah, I think you'd be a fool to ignore anything that's going to get you higher in AI citations. So like Wikipedia is a weird, magical place that it's very hard to get actually listed on, but spend the time, spend the money, and get an expert to do it for you because it counts. And just think of it this way, like do everything that your competitors aren't to get higher in those AI citations. So it's such an advantage to do like a huge, bold sort of earned media campaign or get a ranking on a couple of different sites from client reviews. All these things that you can be doing to be on the top of it right now. And it's changing every day. There's a lot of different theories about how it's going to go and what it's going to look like in 5 years. But,
Well, and to your point, where you might do a PR campaign, garner some earned media for a window of time, but you have to be doing other things in other channels to maintain some degree of momentum, because no disrespect to you, like you can't be doing a PR campaign every day for like...
No. And I mean...
Well, one, because you'll fatigue the people you're trying to reach with stories and big ideas.
Yes,
right?
You will piss off the media for sure if you do more than one a month.
Yeah, so you've got to be doing other things the rest of the time.
Absolutely.
But still on those campaign ideas, some of your biggest campaigns, Mortgage Malaise, the Kids Soft Skills Survey, they were run on the proprietary research that you talked about earlier. Now that we're in an AI-first world, as it seems, is original data more defensible as an earned media asset that a founder can help, or leverage to build their earned media or AI presence?
I mean, I would say that 90% of what I do is created surveys through like an online platform. So we'll ask 1,000 Canadians a question, or 600 small business owners, or whatever it is, and we just generate the most interesting results we can that are the most incendiary that we possibly can, right? Because, again, don't pull any punches, make it interesting. So I had a client that was a digital marketing company, and they work with small businesses a lot, so we wanted to kind of, do something on the side of small business to show that they have their back, and we did a whole thing about fake triotic. So, again, another...
made-up word?
Like a made-up word. That I didn't make up, but it has not been widely used. So, meaning that, like, publicly with your buddies, you're like, oh yeah, I only buy Canadian. But then like you're going to Walmart to save money and buying American goods. And like, who can blame you really? But I wanted to see what small business owners thought about it from coast to coast. And it was, again, a pretty original idea, pretty original pitch based on a 600 small business survey. And that creates something that the media can use and work with.
Are you a patriot or are you patriotic? What was the
Do you think that Canadians are patriotic to you as a small business owner? So the Canadian public's the bad guy in that.
Unless you sell maple syrup.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Well, then you can get it from...
No disrespect to the maple syrup concern out there.
To the maple syrup lobby.
Exactly, yeah, very powerful. Don't mess with maple syrup. Big maple syrup. Yeah, so I mean, I do like proprietary data because then it's really something that no one else has. If you're a company that, God, whatever you do, you should be able to look at a year of data and find some kind of interesting trend, or people are buying this, people aren't buying that, people are doing this, not doing that. You should be able to use your proprietary data as a company to make interesting pitches. But if not, then yeah, in a real turnkey way, you can create something just asking incendiary questions, making things interesting out of nothing.
But I'm going to use your word incendiary, whether you call it incendiary, counterpunch, bold, I zig when everyone else zags, whatever it might be. But when it comes to regulated or conservative industries like pharma, healthcare, financial services, and you've had clients in those spaces, what sort of advice have you given them about being bold yet with some constraint?
I agree with you on healthcare and pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. For sure, there's a very narrow... I tend not to work with them just because it's a very narrow space to be in. You can't joke about health. You can't overpromise what your product is doing. There's a lot of regulation, and there should be. That's good. So there isn't a lot...
You can't be playful.
You can't be playful. There's no room for alliteration and double entendre and like all the things that make pitches interesting. So in those cases, I think it's the human factor. It's telling the stories of people who are suffering from something or benefiting from something, but it's all very factual and not created to a certain extent. Financial services, I disagree. I think financial services can talk about a lot of things. They never want to be predictive, and I understand why not, but you can certainly talk about mistakes that people make. You can talk about Canadians not being educated on what they're actually invested in. You can joke about the fact that we're not asking enough questions of our advisors. That's absolutely true. Like, I did a survey, and I think there was like a 98% of people said they were satisfied with their financial planner. There's no way that's true, right? Like, that's insane. No one is that happy about anything. So
if they're only getting a birthday card and a Christmas card, and that's the extent of the contact they have with their advisor on a annual basis.
Yeah, and I mean,
how does that score 98%?
Yes, and then like I did one about how 7% is the magic number. So it's anytime you ask your financial, like if you're watching this now, phone your financial advisor and ask them how you're doing, and put a percentage number behind it. It's probably going to be 7% because it's not too high, it's not too low. They don't really have to justify it, and seven is the magic number.
It's called the Goldilocks percentage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you don't want to look stupid. So you don't really understand what you're invested in. You're not asking enough questions. But as long as your financial planner says, "Oh yeah, 7% return," you're like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty good." And then when you're at the yacht club, you can say, "Oh, 7%." So
I don't think 7% gets you into the yacht club. But I can mention that I've got the forward whatever in my portfolio. What was it called? Forward
yield disbursement funds.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Forward FY.
Whatever the abbreviation.
It sounds like the New York Fire Department. Not exactly.
A little bit. Yeah.
Well, as we come to a close, I've got two more I want to ask you. So, what's the biggest misconception marketers have about what makes a story worth covering?
Well, back to just this false belief that you're doing something that's changing the world and the media owes you a story about it because you exist.
Don't they? Come on.
Like not everyone is inventing the iPod here.
Yeah.
Like there's companies that are doing great work, but they're not lighting the world on fire. I remember I had a client once that was in real estate, and they had some kind of a thing where they were eliminating a fee on something about selling a house. And he's like, "This is going to change the world. This is unbelievable to everyone." And we were like, "Okay, you're the expert. It doesn't sound like it's that amazing, but you're the expert, and we will pitch this as best we can on your behalf." And when we started talking to journalists that were in the real estate space, they were like, "Yeah, so what? Like everyone's got a shtick like this. There's other companies doing this. This is completely not original." And then we even took those specific emails to the client and said, "This is what journalists are saying." And he was really angry at us. And he was like, "You guys aren't doing it right because this is like changing the world." And like when I said this at our world headquarters, jaws were on the floor. No one could believe it. None of the agents could believe it. It's like, again, great. Big news for you. Everyone in there is excited about it, and it's a big deal. But it's not to people that have a unbiased opinion, So if the media is, most of the time they just don't even respond to you. If the media is responding to you and saying, "Yeah, this isn't newsworthy," and you're kidding yourself, take the hint.
Well, the example you give, it sounds like the founder syndrome. They thought everything that came out of their mouth was gold. And then to your point, he said jaws were on the floor. Well, the jaws that were on the floor were people that work for you that wanted to make you feel like, oh my God.
They're paying their mortgages. They're going to be excited about it.
Yeah. You're the greatest leader we've ever worked for. Well,
blessed be the fruit.
Let's leave some people with some advice. A business owner, entrepreneur, founder, however you want to describe it. If any of those listening to this right now, what would you suggest that they do in the next 30 days to help their discoverability in AI recommendations and search results?
Well, short of hiring a PR agency to do an earned media campaign for you, which would be the best way to do it, but you're looking at about a $15,000 investment on that. Happy to talk to you about that. The best thing that you can do that I believe is still a technicality, someday soon it's going to get closed, but if you write a press release that's like, "We're amazing, says us." So if you've been nominated for anything, if you've won an award, if you've achieved some kind of milestone, if you've whatever, even if it's not actually newsworthy to journalists, if you put this together into a press release, send it out over an inexpensive newswire. Don't do Canada Newswire, it's like $2,000. Do like EIN, EIN Newswire, which is like more like $250 US a release. You push it out, 700 words or whatever. You can push it out in Canada and the US for that price, and it'll get picked up by news aggregator sites. So Globe and Mail, National Post, AP, Reuters, Fox 39, Louisiana Television, they all have websites that have a press releases section, and that content will get picked up in the aggregators for that. So now you have the advantage of being able to say, as seen on these places that have picked it up, which gives you some credibility. It's not real credibility, but it's something. But the big reason to do it now is that AI, and it's not the same level as something like an earned media campaign and real television coverage, but it will move the needle. It does look at that in terms of your market presence, and it does impact you getting picked up in searches.
Well, to your point, it's not cited authority, but it is earned media. And in my own experience, we sent out a press release last summer about our Clutch Award that we'd received. And I think we had like 62 or 67 backlinks. And what was included in that was we were picked up by Yahoo News, Associated Press, high authority. Yes, it's news aggregation, but by the mere association with high authority sites, that gives a bit of a juice to this, or a bit of a boost or authenticity to it. And to your point, for $250 or whatever it was.
And that's something you can do yourself, really, or have your team do. And just to give you the distinction again, that is not earned media coverage. It's news aggregator, so it's paid, aggregated to all these sites, and it's in a section that says, like, this is a press release, and it's verbatim the press release that you wrote. But AI at the moment is considering that to not be a paid thing, even though it totally is.
Well, and to your point earlier about pitching to someone in the media, there's no pitch here. This is a press release that goes to a news aggregator. In a sense, I have no fear or concern that my press release will be rejected by a journalist, because there's no mechanism for that. It's going out on the wire, to use your words.
Fox 39 Louisiana is waiting for your call.
Yeah. Well, and if that lands me a trip to New Orleans to have some crawdads, then I'm game.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with that. And some beignets and some jazz. All good. Thank you for this. Much appreciated. And we may have to revisit this a year from now to see where this is.
We might have to revisit this a month from now, because everything.
That's a very good. That's a very good point. Well, if if the fact that Fable from Claude was only out for 3 days, we could be doing this again in a month.
As we inch towards the singularity and Skynet, things are happening very fast. You got to keep on top of it.
We just have to plug into the matrix.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.